Hello, everyone. Today, my co host Liaika and I, who some of you may know as Geo, we're very excited to talk with Safiya Alpheus as we continue exploring the behind the scenes work of becoming a geologist. In this particular episode, we'll continue our conversations about graduate school.
Sophia is a sedimentary geologist originally from Trinidad and Tobago. She's a graduate student at the Pennsylvania State University, where she's currently working on her master's degree. Her research is focused on understanding the morphodynamics of braided river systems. Through this work, Sophia is broadly interested in understanding how sedimentary systems respond to and record changes in climate, tectonics, and sea level. And I'm super excited talking to a fellow Trini and also a fellow sedimentologist. I just want to put that out there from the start.
Oh yeah, no, me too. No, me too. Thanks for having me, you guys.
So, welcome to the Geo Trip, Sophia. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you from the land of oil and music to the Liberty Bell?
So yeah, like I'm Sophia. I'm a graduate student at Penn State. I guess yeah, I could kind of went over my research interests, but I guess I'll answer the question about what led me down the science path first, and then I'll give you a glimpse of me anyway. So I guess I knew pretty early on that I wanted to be some kind of earth scientist. In high school in Trinidad, so in secondary school, I did geography. I guess you know how in Trinidad, sort of we pick subjects early on in like middle school age, kind of. So geography was one of the subjects I really liked, and I also liked sciences. I remember being really fascinated by when we learned about Oxbow Lakes in geography. My mind was like blown. I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that like a river would just decide to not flow the way it regularly flows and just flow, straight and cut off part of its body. I thought that was really cool. And then sort of in Form 5 and in Form 6, when I was doing CAPE, I also did geography for CAPE. And I found that I really liked it, and I found that it came naturally to me. It was one of those subjects that I didn't have to study as hard for because I just understood it. Like it just felt very intuitive to me. So in my head, I was like, what could I do with just this physical geography side? And of course, in Googling, one of the first things that comes up is like an exploration geologist going into oil and gas. So that's kind of the path I chose. I was like, I'm going to go to Penn State. So I went to Penn State for my undergrad. I did geosciences. And yeah, I just liked it and continued to like it. And continued to kind of pursue that path. And now I'm in grad school um, doing more geosciences. Um, and yeah, I, I like it that far. That's kind of, it was always kind of not meant to be, but it was always something I knew I wanted to pursue.
And that seems to be the story for many of us who decide that we want to become geologists or geoscientists. It kind of happens pretty early on.
They really hook you in geography, like
Yeah,
seriously.
geography was like my go-to subject. And I distinctly remember one day my teacher came in with this pamphlet of like careers in geoscience. And I was like, wait, like you could actually do this? And from then on, it was like already decided for me, man. So it sounds like you pretty much decided on Penn State pretty early on in the process. What made you go with them as your first choice?
Oh gosh, I swear, I get asked this question quite a lot of times, and I wish it was like um a better story, but honestly, I was trying to figure out what schools I wanted to apply to, and I didn't really know, from what the process was, what you should be looking for. And sort of one of the things, sorry, I Googled was best schools for geosciences. And the first, like, I don't know, 10 schools or so were all like Ivy League schools or UC Berkeley or UC schools. And I didn't have the grades to get into those schools. Like I knew that beforehand. So then after those 10 schools was Penn State. And I was like, okay, I could probably get in here. So I applied and I got in. And I was like, all right, that's where I'm going. Yeah.
I literally love that story because honestly, I followed the money. I looked for the school that was giving me the best scholarship money. And I took it because at the time it
Yep.
was 6 to 1, which is our
Mm-hmm.
conversion rate. So I am with you.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the question, right? So once you discovered or decided you were going to go to Penn, I know it's been a little while, but can you walk us through what the application process as an international student was like for you?
Well, so it was a little bit different for me because I am actually a US citizen. So I just had to do the out of state process. Um, but it was just same general. I had to write a couple of application statements. I had taken a gap year, so I needed to write a statement as to what I did on my gap year as well, I think, if I remember. And then, being in Trinidad, you had to find the SAT schools to take the SATs. Um, I had to take the SATs. Like, I swear I took the SATs like 3 times. I think my parents were so fed up of like taking me to do that exam. Um, but yeah, so I, took the SATs. I had to write the statements, put in the application. And then, yeah, it was pretty simple for me, like I said, because I didn't have to deal with the visa issues, which like I'm really grateful for. So yeah.
So some of those issues that you got to escape for
Yeah.
international students, aside from applying for your actual place in the university via taking your SAT and writing the required letters and getting the required references, you actually have to provide financial support documents showing that you would be able or your family will be
So,
able to support you,
mm-hmm.
and you have to go through your visa application process. So once you are admitted, your school will grant you an I-20 closer to your date, and then you'll go to the embassy that's located in your country, and you will apply for your student visa, and then you would be able to kind of come across. Um,
Mm-hmm.
s- but Sophia, your journey is kind of unique. So has how has that kind of like impacted your studying? So even though you are Trinidadian with some benefits, you're still, fall under the international student umbrella. So what was that like, especially like going from geography to geology, which is something I'm always battling and trying to explain to people that they are significantly different.
But they both have geo in them, though.
Dr. Prince, really?
Sorry.
I think it'd be my pretty mummy voice there, boy.
Yeah, I, I guess I could speak to the experience of just the culture shock that came with going from or coming from Trinidad to the US. Like prior to coming to Penn State, I had not lived in the US for any long period of time. I had not visited for any long period of time. So it was, and honestly, sometimes it still is a giant, giant culture shock. I mean, I guess you guys, you all know, is like comparing Trinidad with Americans is very different. We have a different work ethic. We have just our accent is so different. Getting over the whole accent thing is something I still struggle with every day. Trying to like speak naturally and speak like myself and how I feel comfortable with. And then also like worrying, am I talking too fast? Am I mixing up my words? Sometimes I'll switch over into dialects and people will be like, what? Like sometimes I'll just say, oh yeah, I almost killed Kate in the road there. And like this look of like uncertainty or kind of like confusion um, is something I still like get shocked by every day. I don't know if this answers your question. I might have been going off on a ramble. Um,
This is perfect.
No, it was literally what my question was literally asking what was, an experience for you as an quote unquote international coming into a foreign education system. And I totally agree with you. It was something I remember when I started my master's program. Um, I got a lot on my reviews as a lab TA. Miss
mm,
Welcome speaks way too quickly. I'm not sure she's speaking English. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? I couldn't figure it out. So I am loving this because this is the most amount of Trinidadian conversation that I've been having outside of family members, actually verbally, because I've been doing a lot of texting due to
Mhm.
Zoom burnout. So no, I am loving it.
Yeah. Oh,
And
that Zoom burnout is real.
it's hard to anticipate that because you think we speak English, right? And we do. But then when we get here, it's like we're speaking something totally different. So
Mhm.
this is me trying to talk clearly. And people's like for the first couple of months that I was here, I don't think anyone really understood what I was saying.
No. You know what was also a big struggle for me, especially now, I don't know if people know where Penn State is. Penn State is literally in the middle of Pennsylvania. It's a very beautiful place. There's lots of trees, lots of life, squirrels everywhere. Sure, amazing. But nowhere I could never find Trini food. I could barely even find Caribbean food. I don't even know if I could find jute seasoning in the grocery. Like, that was one of the biggest struggles that I've had. So I've literally had to like go back and try to learn to make, macaroni pie, stewed chicken, doubles, all of the Trini things that I kind of need to sustain me, especially over this last year. I like that has been a big, big like change and culture shock that I still like try to get used to. I only found state saltfish in State College last week, and I've been here for almost 5 years now.
It
And I'm
sounds like
telling you.
So
it
I have to ask, do you have the staple for surviving in America, the Naparima Girls Cookbook?
Okay, so my mother don't like that cookbook.
You know what? My mother doesn't either, but yeah, kind of comes in
Yeah,
handy.
we used to have it, and then my mother decided she didn't like it. So now is always every time I want to cook something, mommy, how to make this? Mommy, how to make that? Um,
the food
Shout out.
controversy. I mean, I own the Naparima cookbook, and I do definitely like twinge and change around the recipes, but
mhm.
I am not supporting the controversial not liking of the cookbook. I just want to make that clear. Y'all not gonna make girls come after me.
Shout out to Trini Cooking with Natasha real quick, saving a lot of lives doing the
Oh,
Lord's
good, yeah, boy.
real
And
food.
Caribbean pot on YouTube. Whew.
Oh, and don't forget Trini Eater Food. Oh my goodness, he
Oh,
has
yes.
shout out to Trini Eater Food. He has some amazing during this COVID year. He has saved my household.
Listen, I made hot cross buns from that website the other day for Good Friday, and I hadn't had a hot cross bun in so long. I swear I was gonna cry. Saving my life.
But
Yeah.
just before we go on to actually talk about your research, just a heads up, because my sister's actually located at UPenn. There are some places close to actual UPenn that sells ingredients for Caribbean food and curry and jerk seasoning and saltfish and provisions. So just a heads up, I could give you that information offline.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, I definitely will take that from you.
Yeah, the struggle is real. I lived in Golden, Colorado, so I know what it was not finding anything in the grocery store.
Yeah, shout out from Waco, Texas.
Oh
That
gosh.
was rough.
Take one, take one.
They go in for sure.
So, tell me, Sophia, switching gears a bit, about your current research.
Yeah, so I short story short. I study rivers. I specifically have spent a lot of time in the last couple of years, or the last year and a half, I guess, studying braided rivers. And what I'm really interested in is understanding how the dynamics of a system, understanding how a river changes in time, um, how a river just migrates across the surface of the earth during its active lifespan. I'm really interested in understanding how those changes and how those morphodynamic processes get recorded in stratigraphy and in the sedimentological record. So I've spent a lot of time over the last year doing these sort of simulations of rivers. Um, and it's these computer simulations, and they just simulate river flow, and you can input, the same sort of characteristics that would kind of dictate the way a river would flow in the real world. And I use those simulations to reconstruct the stratigraphy of different like cross sections across the river, and then I compare those with stuff that we might see in the modern rivers. So I compare, the kind of kinematics that we see in the rivers in the modern to the modern record. And then I also compare the stratigraphic product to what we might see in the ancient stratigraphic record. And what I'm hoping to do with that is kind of make a linkage between what we observe in the ancient, or the processes that create what we observe in the ancient, and those processes that occur in the modern that we could like extrapolate in time and sort of bridge the time gap of sort of what we could observe on the modern and what actually gets preserved in the ancient record.
Okay.
So by morphodynamics or river morphodynamics, you're pretty much talking about like studying the river bed forms in response to like erosion and sedimentation. Is that what you mean? Feel free to correct me. Just trying to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about how the deposits might move on the bed, so how the bed forms grow, how the bars grow, how the channel migrates through time, and that kind of thing. And then also how that operates in tandem with how that might change if we were to increase discharge in the system or change the climate or drop sea level or have some sort of increase in sediment supply. So those kind of morphological processes, I'm interested in how those get preserved in the record.
So tell me, sounds really interesting, but kind of why is this important, this linking of past and present? Is there some kind of practical reason for pursuing this kind of study?
There are lots of reasons I could probably think of. But one of the things that I find particularly interesting about this is just sort of understanding I think one of the things that I think particularly motivates me is sort of understanding how rivers respond to how the riverbed and the river itself kind of responds to these changes in discharge or like a change in sediment supply, and particularly how sensitive the river system is to that. And, and I'm hoping to maybe get at an understanding of, what is the tendency of a river to flood or of a river to widen and erode the floodplain, in response to different discharge conditions or different, like an increased sediment supply from the hill slopes. And there are, I guess, a lot of ways that this could probably impact humans. I think about people living in floodplains, that could be prone to flooding, and that flooding risk might change, or the susceptibility of that system might change with climate change. And also, in hill slopes that are kind of being not degraded, but sort of like eroded and worn away, and how that sediment supply change might affect the sensitivity of a river to just regular storms and increase its propensity to flood or its propensity to relocate or vulse. And those sort of things are actual hazards for people living in floodplain areas. So that's like the most, I guess, close parallel or impact of my work or my research interests.
Yeah, sounds of like critical importance because so many people live in floodplains actually.
No, it's great stuff he's working on, because when you think about like river management and prediction of erosion and sedimentation processes, like you said, Dr. Prince, so many people are impacted and affected by this and have been. I mean, we could think of very recently what happened in Texas annually, what happens in Louisiana, Alabama, and even like on our own front at home in the Caribbean, what it means for those who didn't necessarily know that they purchased housing on a floodplain. And I'm super stoked hearing her talk about this because I kind of work on something similar. So I'm like, yes, bring the fluvial.
Oh gosh, we have to have like a whole like sedimentary geology river, just separate discussion.
We're gonna kick Dr. Prince out one day and definitely do.
And just
over here
talk sand.
Carbonates. Yeah, we don't mess with that stuff.
This is a sand only club, Gyron.
Sorry, but
Important. Hey, reciprocal sedimentation.
but no, this work is so fundamental and it's so interesting, especially when you think about trying to tease out climatic signatures so that we could better understand climate change. And I love what you just kind of mentioned in terms of the people, because that's something I've really been focusing heavy on.
Mhm.
Vulnerable communities. How are those who are underserved or underrepresented who exist in these areas, how do they understand the risk? How's that communicated and educated to them? And the only way we can
Mhm.
really do that is by ourselves getting a better understanding or a better hold of the topic as geologists, as earth scientists, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I completely agree.
All right. So one more question from me. Aside from the technical aspects, because it certainly sounds like you've gotten your hands dirty very quickly with a lot of research. What else has graduate school taught you so far?
It's taught me a lot about myself just as a person and how I handle difficult situations or challenges. It's also, I guess, taught me that I need to trust myself a little bit more because, I don't know about you all, but like entering grad school, I had to deal with a lot of imposter syndrome and like even still now. But I think like, as you go on and as you see the things that you've done, or as at least I go on and I see the things that I've learned and that I've been able to achieve, the things that maybe a year ago I was like, oh, Sophia, I don't know how you're gonna do that, I like I think you should just this is too much. And just looking back now, like things like learning to code or like plotting nice graphs in Python, um, just it has taught me to just one, trust that I am able to learn difficult things, and then two, trust that what I have done is good quality and it like deserves the space that it holds. Is something that I've learned a lot, and it's like I think that's a big lesson that I really value.
It's so interesting that you've mentioned that because I have definitely been battling and I'm still battling with imposter syndrome. And it's so funny because prior to grad school, I didn't really ever like think about or tell myself I couldn't accomplish or get things done. It wasn't until I started really getting into research and sometimes feeling like I was flailing about or feeling that imposter syndrome ever became. I have definitely been able or been working on that. And so I guess what I will ask you or like to hear from you, um, aside from like imposter syndrome or developing that, what would you say has been something or anything that you have learned or has excited you since starting your graduate program, or you would even like to change about um, since beginning your graduate program or your experience?
I would say that I don't think there's anything that I would particularly drastic that I would change. I think one of the things I would have liked to have known early on is that time management is important, and time management being time for school, but also time for me, and time for, you know, other things. I took a little while to learn the healthy balance between like, when is working late not fair to myself or not good for my body versus when is it you feel like I don't know, sometimes you feel like you're working away as a problem and it's just like you could just sit behind your laptop just type in for hours and hours and then it feels organic versus sometimes you'll just be like, oh, I have to work until I don't know, like 9 o'clock today, or I have to work all Saturday. And it's taken me a little bit of time, I think, just gauge learning to gauge when my time is being best spent on work versus when my time is being unhealthy to me or when I just deserve rest. So I wish that was something I definitely learned earlier on. Um, but I'd like to think that I know it now, even though time is kind of a construct right now with COVID. But, I'd like to think it still applies.
Coming into graduate school from my undergrad, so I did my undergrad here in the US as well, went to a small geology department at a school in California.
Mm-hmm.
And making the transition, I knew I wanted to kind of get into oil and gas. So I figured Texas was it. I find this applied petroleum studies program, and I'm like, yeah, that's where I'm going. And then I get there and realize like wow, like y'all know this? I'm supposed to know this? Wait, everyone but me knows this. That's kind of where I first kind of felt those pangs of, man, I don't
I'm
feel,
behind.
yeah, I don't feel like I fit in here. Like I don't belong here. And that's been something that has kind of stuck with me through grad school. I think that
Mm,
coming into a PhD, getting involved in research and kind of producing something gives you a little more reassurance. But yeah, that definitely was an adjustment. And that time management is huge. Like knowing when you've done enough for that day. Your advisor may
yeah.
not think or agree with you, but it's really important to kind of get to know yourself and be honest, and not just honest but be kind with yourself. Like
Mm.
goes such a long way. It's really a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's also, I don't know, sometimes I feel like there's the flip side of that where it's just like, I'll read one paper and I'll be like, okay, Sophia, you did enough today. So great, amazing. I'm so glad you did all this work. You are killing it. And then that's also like a discipline that I had to learn too, where it's like, Sophia, yeah, you read one paper, but you also have other stuff to do. You can't just sit around and watch like Love Island for the rest of the day, or for the rest of the week and just call it like, you'll catch up the time later. So yeah, just time and discipline is something that I've learned a lot about over the past over like my time in grad school. And I think I even now I continue to modify my understanding of how my time is best spent. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's real important because there have been times where just like I just have felt like time has been slipping away from me, with doing work or not doing work. So I think just finding that balance is something that, I wish I had learned it maybe early on, but at the same time, like you have to learn sometimes. Just for me, not maybe not everybody, but sometimes for me, I was that child that like your mother would tell you, Sophia, don't play with the stove. Sophia, don't play with the stove. Sophia, don't play with the stove. And the only way I would learn to not play with the stove is to go and burn my hand. So, that might work for everybody, but for me, sometimes that's what I need.
I feel like we are the same person right now because I totally agree with everything you said. And it's honestly a little bit comforting, especially as someone who's still working on her graduate degree. We're not all as lucky as Dr. Prince right now. Um, but it's comforting to hear that it is to some degree a universal struggle, especially if you fall into like first gen or international categories, or even if you are, from an area, but no one around you has really pursued this path before, there's a lot you really don't know. And, asking for help, allowing yourself grace, time management, these are all life skills that we're learning and experiencing and burning through, right? So
Yeah.
I guess to close up our official part, I'm going to say or ask you, what's one piece of advice you would give to other students wishing to enter the field of geology or earth sciences?
Um, Wishing to enter, right? I think one thing that I would maybe one piece of advice that I find particularly valuable, I guess, is to be broad, um, and be open to, the earth is just so interdisciplinary. Like you can't just, it's so easy to be like, ooh, I want to go down this one straight road. But I think being able to gain that perspective of multiple different subfields of geosciences and just getting a feel for what you're into and what you're interested in. Like I changed interests maybe every semester in undergrad. I don't know. I am also a very fickle person, but I think allowing myself that space to just explore, I think is really valuable. And I think also on the topic of allowing oneself to do things, I think being patient and kind to yourself is really, really important. And it feels sometimes in the geosciences like, or this might be for every science, I don't know. But sometimes learning feels like there's such a steep learning curve, especially in geoscience. It's like that first time you got into the field, everything is a blur. That first time you open a paper on the physics of something is like a million different differential and integration signs, and you just don't understand. And it feels like kind of, sometimes it feels like you're not making progress, or sometimes it feels like you just don't have the chops to learn or don't have the chops to understand, something, or something just seems really unbearably hard. I think being patient with yourself and allowing yourself like the grace to not know, and just kind of slowly walk up that very steep learning curve, and slowly sort of learn the things that you need to understand something fully. It's something that you might seem, something that you might think you would understand, I think is very important to remember that, you're in this to learn. If you knew everything, you would be like, I don't know, Dr. Prince. If we knew everything, then we wouldn't need to be here learning or doing the research that we're doing. So yeah, I think be broad and be patient and kind with yourself.
I love that because, yeah, sometimes you definitely can feel overwhelmed, especially when there's so much to learn, so much to know, and the way that things are so connected, right? That's what's the beauty
Mhm.
of geology. It's been amazing talking to you so far. We just like to wrap up with a very critical session that we have called Hot Potato. Are
Oh
you ready?
boy. Oh gosh. Okay. Well, how does this work?
Don't worry about it. You have to trust me. Let me know if you trust. Let me know if you trust my river braiding capabilities.
You know what? Trini to Trini, I will allow you this. I trust you. Let's go.
Question one. What's the song you blast when you need to turn your day around?
International Players Anthem by UGK.
Love it. Love
I
it.
love it. What three toppings must you have on your doubles? And for those of you who don't know, doubles is Trinidad street food that you have to try whenever you get the opportunity to visit Trinidad and Tobago. But yeah, what are your three toppings that you must have?
Sweet sauce, shadow beni sauce, and it's pepper topping.
Yeah, really?
Okay, sliced pepper. I don't know what pepper for some people is a given. That's like
Uh,
the chana in the doubles.
cucumber, pepper, yeah, yeah, all those count.
Mhm.
As long as you don't like blasphemously say chicken, I'm good with that pepper counting as a topic.
I have never tried those meat doubles, so I can't. I couldn't even.
I haven't worked up the confidence to try roast pepper and doubles yet, so
You have to get like a little bit of roast, like a chunky bit. You just gotta tell the doubles man, just shake the little pepper spoon, just a little bit. Because if they put too much, I don't know, I just can't handle it.
I'm kind of ashamed to say now, but I used to be a slight pepper kind of guy. Recently, I gone down to no pepper.
Nah,
I don't
man.
know. I don't know. I don't know. Once you're not
No.
sweating, you're not doing it right.
Like I don't know, like maybe the time not eating doubles consistently, like I losing my capabilities here, but I losing my
We may
pepper
have to
using
take
heads.
one of the stripes from your flag there, buddy, because I don't know.
Hmm, I feel it. I feel it. All right, so let me ask. Really important. Really, really important. There's like choosing between Trinidad or Tobago, but we're gonna present you with the choice: KFC or Royal Castle.
No, 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 no. That's like, I would
Yeah.
say
What?
KFC, but a Royal Castle three ring combo is like life, and Royal Castle honey mustard life. You can't pit one against each other.
It's the
That's unfair.
flavor
Of
of
our
our
culture.
culture.
That we should start this episode with the Royal Castle song.
The
This is
pepper
why it's called
sauce.
hot potato. Hard choices in life.
Oh, I would say KFC has more breath.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
Now
KFC.
that Royal Castle pepper has hooked me. So
Royal
Oh, that
Castle
Royal
pepper,
Castle pepper.
undefeated.
Champion of Trinidad.
you can buy
Champion.
it at Tiarco Airport for $10.
Of course you can. 10 what, US or TTS? Show us US.
I honestly can't remember.
Yeah, $10 something real cheap. It's probably 10 US. I didn't
But
even
that's
know you
what
could
this
do that.
is.
Wow. All right. And I guess what are you watching right now? What are you binging?
I am rewatching Modern Family right now. I am looking for shows. If you have suggestions, I am open to them. But yeah, I'm on season 5 of Modern Family.
Whoop whoop, Pam or Mitchell.
Okay. I have lots of
Of
suggestions.
course.
Lots of suggestions, but people
Talk to
usually
me.
don't like my suggestions. I like weird stuff.
Like how weird.
Um, so my students encouraged me to start watching anime recently. So
Uh-huh.
knocked out Naruto, Attack on Titan. They had to encourage me to go back after the first episode, and I'm glad they did because it's freaking awesome. What else do we have?
Naruto's pretty sweet though. I love me some Naruto and Dragon Ball Z.
I've
Yeah,
watched a couple of episodes of Dragon Ball Z, but I was not a big cartoon fan. I'm
okay.
graduating up to anime. I don't know. Maybe I'll get there somehow. Who
I was
knows?
like, ma'am, there's a difference, but we don't have time.
Nah, Naruto is a good one to start with. Nah, and it's a long one, so you
Mhm.
run out of episodes anytime soon. If you're looking for something on Netflix, Connected, love that. Is like
I
this
loved Connected.
for real.
Connected was good.
See, I knew I felt a spark there.
You felt connected.
Love that. Love that and robots. Is this short anthology series?
Hmm.
Fantastic stuff. What else on Netflix is good, Yaika?
I am a I love documentaries. So right now I'm making my way through the college admission scandal.
Mm.
Hmm.
Mm-mm-mm.
Did you watch the one with the art heist?
Yeah.
This is not a robbery or something like that. It was very good.
Yeah, and on my to watch list next if I ever get through the college admission scandal, because I'm actually doing a lot of writing or trying to do a lot of writing right now, is Sons of
Yes.
Sam. So that's on my list to watch.
Ooh.
So yeah. If you want documentaries, I can send you down the rabbit hole with that.
I might hit you up. I might hit you up.
But oh my gosh, this has been great so far.
This
Thank you
was
so
so much fun.
So thank you so much for joining us for this episode of GeoTrip. Safiya, it's been wonderful having you.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. I got to talk to Renee for a whole hour on a Friday. Wow, amazing.
It's almost like we're in Smokies and Bunties.
It almost is. Yes, exactly.
the original one, because it changed.
Yes. Yes, the original.
All right. So if you're interested in asking us any questions regarding geology or a journey, you can follow us on Instagram or Twitter at the GeoTrip. And Safiya, if you'd like, you can share your socials as well if you'd like people to follow along.
Well, I would have to spell it, but it's at Safiya_Alpheus on Twitter. I think that's it. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
And please stand by for the national anthem.
Dun, 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 dun.